You know, as long as I can remember, tea felt somewhat traditional and outdated for me. Whenever my grandfather was playing his mahjong with his friends, he will always have a strong cup of green tea by his side. And my dad will always serve his cup of pu'er to his guests when he was kind of having a conversation at home with his guests. So tea culture for me felt outdated because it felt traditional and elderly with only old people practicing it. So let me ask you this question. When was the last time you saw someone of our age actually brewing a cup of tea? Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia from grade 11. For a long time, I never expected tea culture to be a part of my identity, but there was once that I accidentally stumbled upon this quiet world upon these leaves, and what I found there was not about tea at all. Well, let me tell you a story first. My love with tea started quite random with this TV series acted by Liu Yifei. Well, she's a really famous Chinese movie star, and looking at her being so pretty, who wouldn't want to be like her? So I fell in love with her beauty and also the tea culture that she practiced. I bought some tools online and practiced it myself. Well, the first few attempts were of course terrible, just splashing waters everywhere, but eventually I managed to get it done, and that moment paused for me. I felt a strong sense of soothing peace and mindfulness that's kind of unusual, because students of our age rarely stop at all. Like most students of our age, our days move fast. Schools, notifications, homeworks, music while studying, videos while eating, or sometimes resting felt busy for us. And I know I wasn't the only one. Our generation is constantly connected, yet mentally scattered. Even moments that are supposed to calm us down become productive somehow. And in the middle of all these beats, I entered the tea world that was calming me down. When my mom noticed my growing interest, she introduces me to her friends, a group of Chaoshan middle-aged women that I will call her Chaoshan Joy Luck Club. Well, I promise you, they love their tea culture. They talk about this 凤凰单丛乌龙 tea, like they're most acquainted friends. They talk about its spirits and its 气韵, just like their most acquainted friends. And they were talking about it like they're a gypsy fortune teller. They said, oh, this tea had a somewhat rocky mountain energy. And they would even tell you the mountain it grew on, the weather it's been through, or even the hens that roasted it. And I would just always sit there, being shocked, feeling, well, this is definitely a cult. But slowly, I began to understand them, because they weren't obsessed with the tea itself, but they were obsessed with its attention, since brewing a good nettle of tea demands attention. You cannot rush it. The temperature matters, the water matters, the pouring matters, and the waiting also matters. So if your mind wanders for just a second, the whole tea changes its flavor. That's why older generation always said, brewing a good cup of tea punishes distraction. And it's during this process of tea brewing and tea drinking that I found myself able to do only one thing at a time. Just sitting there, watching the steam rising up from the cups, and that felt revolutionary somehow. Later, I also began to organize some of these tea cultural events. And after one performance, there was a woman came up to me, being so excited, saying, I never knew our tea could be so beautiful. And that moment stays with me, not simply because I suddenly noticed someone of our age prefers tea culture like me, but more importantly because I found that people were longing for such a moment that they could barely describe it themselves. Modern life trains us to constantly move, to constantly consume, and constantly react, so that we rarely have a time to really pause and look at the beauty of things around us. According to a 2023 report by American Psychological Association, younger generation today experience a significantly higher chronic stress and mental fatigue than previous generations. And studies also shows that students and teachers always check their phones hundreds of times each day. And that's why our attention is like that, being constantly fragmented and interrupted. Look at those Southern Koreans' feverish obsession with their ice Americano culture. It's their survival culture of taking down an ice Americano the first thing in the morning. And for them, stress is what defines them, because they want what is the productivity and efficiency, and resting for them felt somewhat optional. In comparison, tea does not ask you to achieve anything, but it asks you to notice. Psychologists describe this state of mindfulness as the ability to intentionally focus on one thing at a time. And that is exactly what tea trains us to do. It keeps us in the present, feeling the heat of the clay, smell of the dampened leaves, color of the leaves changing. The small cup forces us to put all our attention into it, just like a meditation, so that your minds become slower and your thoughts become clearer. Tea taught me something that I never expected to learn before. Not everything meaningful has to be fast and efficient and productive. Your experience remains very valuable as long as you experienced it. The 17th century philosopher Blaise Pascal used to say, all humans' inability stems from a man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And I found truth in that. In my home, we had a habit. Whenever someone is about to fall into a fight or is being so overwhelmed, my mother will always ask us to sit around our tea table. And she'll say, okay, let's have our tea first. And amazingly, we never fall into a real fight. I used to think that tea is just something tasty, but now I can see something more than that. It creates some pause for us that many of us are losing today. We are constantly being surrounded by noise, and we move from one thing to another so quickly that we rarely stop and ask ourselves the simplest question: how am I, really? And tea gave us that moment. You can reflect on your day, your relationship, or even your lifelong decisions. And maybe tea might not be your thing, and that's totally okay. Your thing might come from scuba diving, surfing, reading, eating, just whatever thing you want to do without your phone by your side. That's okay. Because the most important thing is that we all need to do something that brings us back to ourselves and finally start to listen to ourselves again. So, what's your cup of tea? Thank you.